Couple of minutes for everybody to log in. I think I've just been cut off. So yeah, good afternoon. I'm just going to give it as I was just saying, just going to give it a couple of minutes for everybody to get logged in and comfortable. I can see the numbers growing steadily. So I will disappear for a moment, but then I'll be back in the next 30 seconds to a minute. Okay, I can see a few more are still looking to get into the room. So just bear with us another 30 seconds or so, and then we will dive straight into the session. We won't be long. Okay, great. I think we have everybody who's going to be here for the kickoff online. We're a couple of minutes over the hour. And for those that aren't yet in, there will be a replay available. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll dive straight into the presentation. So let me just go into, here we go. Fantastic. Okay, so first of all, welcome everybody to today's session, Automated Supply Qualification, what we believe to be procurement's superpower in a post-tariff world. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Steve Middleton, a very proud UK growth director here at Kodiak Hub. And at Kodiak Hub, we help procurement leaders all over the world to turn their supply data into real-time, actionable insights that make a real difference. Not only automating processes of supply qualification, the subject of today's presentation, but also impacting relationships they hold with their suppliers and drive greater supply collaboration and performance. I have to say, it's a real pleasure to be your host today. And please, I want to make sure this session is of most value to each and every one of you. So should you have any questions at all during today's session, please use the Q&A tab on the right-hand side of your screen within the webinar format. I've got my colleague, David Olson, also online, who will be answering those live during the session, but also picking some questions that we can use in our Q&A session at the very end of the presentation. So let's get into the session. First of all, today's May the 6th, and we're going to, this is what we're going to cover off in today's presentation. A quick introduction to Kodiak and the agenda that we're running through now. Procurement's new reality. We all know that procurement is changing and fast, more so over these most recent years than ever before. So we'll just cover off some of the new challenges that we're up against. And of course, why there is now a greater need than ever for smarter, more dynamic SRM solutions and supply qualification, and why it's important to now move from where most of us are in terms of a very reactive space into a more proactive and automated supply management program. And of course, we will dive into Kodiak to show you what that looks like today and what a smart SRM can help you to achieve, particularly when it comes to supply qualification. And we'll end the session with a Q&A. So like I said, please, if you've got any questions that you'd like answering that aren't covered during today's session, or maybe inspired by something that we share today, then feel free to write those questions, and myself and David will get to those at the very end of the session. And before we dive in, my goal today, honestly, is to introduce each and every one of you to the true power and impact of having a dedicated smart SRM platform in the heart of your procurement ecosystem. We will, of course, cover the current challenges, as I shared, and the challenges that we face, including the disruptions driven by tariffs and the broader global economic pressures. But I'll also provide you a live demonstration of Kodiak Hub, showcasing how it streamlines supplier onboarding and simplifies complexity. However, for those of you who wish to have a one-on-one call with me or any one of our team to go through some of the modules that you see on the screen today, or to answer any specific questions you have or challenges that you're experiencing, then please do click the link that David's going to put on the screen, and you'll be able to book a call, say, either with me or with one of our colleagues here. David, before I move on, I just want to confirm, is everything working as it should? And have you put that link on the screen?
Yes. Yeah, it's all great. There's the demo if anyone would like to book one now. We'll also bring this up later on if you're interested at the end of the presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, David. Well, look, let's dive into the presentation. And I want to start it here because let's face it, due diligence, it isn't very sexy. People don't get excited about governance and qualification, not your team, and certainly not your suppliers. And that's why it's super important that we keep it simple for all. However, keeping it simple is not easy, as the procurement landscape continues to get more and more complex. For those of you that have seen my presentations before, you would have seen this slide before, but it's really important. You know, procurement is no longer just the traditional role of cost reduction and risk management. There is so much more that we have to deal with, new challenges and responsibilities, from greater transparency and traceability, you know, with new ESG regulations and market demands, greater supply chain resilience. You know, there are more frequent global supply chain geopolitical disruptions now than ever before. And we're going to go into some more detail on that in a moment. But also it's our responsibility to drive a more sustainable trade. So, and as a result, we are now capturing more data from more different sources than ever before. And it's becoming impossible to manage, particularly in some of the legacy solutions that we know many are still working with. And let's not forget the absolute tsunami of legislations that we have to keep on top of that are forever evolving. And the fact that really we've just experienced a decade of disruptions that show no sign of slowing down. Everything from the pandemic, I know we try and forget about it, but it happened, and we still have challenges as a result of that pandemic. Obviously, there's wars going on in different parts of the world. And of course, the subject of today's webinar, tariffs. And, you know, why are tariffs a problem? Well, in fact, it was David that found this article, and thank you, David, for sharing it. But this statement from Amanda Rousseau, who's the CEO of Cornerstone Paradigm Consulting, I think perfectly articulates the challenges linked to these tariffs. Now, we're not going to read this full statement out, and everybody will get a copy of today's presentation, or you can look at it on YouTube and press pause. But ultimately, what Amanda shares here is the fact that there will be disruptions in the flow of trade. We can expect even greater complexity and extended lead times. There is a greater need now to be more resilient and more adaptable in our procurement teams when looking at our supply chains. And for me, this is just yet another example of many of why we can no longer rely on manual processes. We have to invest in technology that will protect us whilst also drive greater efficiency. Geopolitical turmoil is compelling businesses to redesign their global supply chains to help build greater resistance. And again, just to expand on this, I love this statistic again that David found for me, as highlighted in this article. 81% of execs say that strategic reshoring is central to their sourcing plans. So decisions are being made based on the location, the political landscape. We are seeing more companies focused on right shoring. And in fact, they're not just focused on this. As per these statistics from the recent Proxima report, it's already a reality. It's already happening. And in fact, this is where we want to just go into our first poll. And I don't know if you're ready, David, but for those of you that are impacted like this, by this, we'd love to ask you a question. Oh, David, we can't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm here. So yeah, we're just wondering what type of reshoring strategy are any of you planning to utilize to mitigate these tariffs? We have reshoring, onshoring, friendshoring, nearshoring. Maybe you're doing multiple of these, but it would be great if you could select the most crucial one that you guys are focusing on.
Yeah, and we'll leave this open for another 15, 20 seconds. So just please, those of you that can give a response, just tick a box. Super helpful for us to understand how this is impacting the market. Let me know when the responses are in, David.
Yep, we have quite a few rolling in. We'll give it another few seconds. If you are exploring any of these strategies, we'd appreciate your votes so we can all understand how everyone is trying to mitigate these tariffs.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've had about 40% of the audience vote, right. And as of now, the number one is reshoring with 43% of the votes, and the next one is nearshoring with 36%, and then we have onshoring is number two at 14%, and friendshoring at 7%. So it seems like a lot of people are planning to bring their suppliers to manufacturing back home with reshoring, or bring it closer with nearshoring, and a bit less with friendshoring, but that could be a good strategy for some of you guys to explore. Look for your friends out there. Thanks for voting, though. We'll have a few more polls coming up.
Great. Thank you, everybody. So we're back at this slide. I shared a couple of slides ago that procurement is no longer just the role of cost reduction and risk management, but you'll also see I've added cost and risk management 2.0 as well as these new challenges and responsibilities we have. And the reason why I've done that is because as a result of everything that I've just shared, I've never seen a time where costs have been impacted so much. Never seen a time where risk is ever changing like it is today. And this is why, again, manual suppliers management won't just fail. It will leave you exposed and weak against your competitors. So this is why we need to make the move from being reactive in our Excel spreadsheets and being more proactive using technology to help us. And this brings me on to this image here. And before I kind of describe what it is that we're showing, I want to share a story really from a conversation I was having with a customer at the end of last year. It was back in November, and I was talking to a prospect then actually now a client of ours, but they completed an exercise where they identified that 80% of their time was spent in what they called operational chaos. So this was duplicating data, manually saving, renaming files, creating reports, updating endless inaccurate spreadsheets, and I'm sure I could go on, but they were trapped in tools that were never designed to manage this amount of moving data. Endless spreadsheets, shared files, you can imagine, often out of date and impossible to track. And as they put it, it was chaos. And I know that this is a very familiar picture for many of us. So again, I'm going to come back to David because there's a question we've asked before, but we're going to ask it again. Over to you, David.
Yes, sorry about that. So our next poll, we're just wondering what type of tools do you guys use to manage your suppliers? We have spreadsheets, Word, PDF, homegrown solutions, legacy software, or if you have a dedicated SRM platform like Kodiak Hub. So yeah, please vote so we can get an idea of where the audience is at with their SRM solutions. Okay, a lot of answers coming in. We'll give it a few more seconds.
And I'm expecting everybody to vote here, David. So I don't want anybody getting off lightly at this point, because everybody's doing something, whether it's in a homegrown document, a solution, Excel, Word forms, PDFs. Everybody's doing something today. So what's the percentage looking like, David?
We're at 57%, so we're getting a little bit more participation in this one from before,
Okay.
but I think we can go into the results. It's slowed down right now. We'll give 5 more seconds.
You're a softer touch than I am, David. You're a softer touch than I am.
Yeah. Okay, but we can dive in the results. So yeah, actually we have 50% of respondents saying spreadsheets, Word, and PDF. And then number 2, we have legacy software at about 38%. And then homegrown solutions at 10%. And then unfortunately, we have 0% on SRM platforms. So yeah, we're going to have to do something about that by the end of this webinar, I suppose. But yeah, unfortunately, spreadsheets, Word, and PDFs are over half of respondents. So,
and as you know, David, that's no surprise at all. And you know, this statistic that we actually carried out quite a big project alongside one of our partners, ProcureTech, last year, and it showed that 72% of teams are still sitting in Excel or homegrown solutions. And in fact, actually, our statistics on this webinar are slightly higher than that, it would seem, which is crazy. And I can tell you, and I know we were having a bit of a laugh and joke, but I'm on a mission to change this, because I think there's definitely a better way of doing things. And just to expand on that a little bit more, change is absolutely necessary. Okay, because I'm sorry to say, we're never going to make any progress with these legacy tools, scattered data silos. You know, a modern, dedicated, smart SRM solution is specifically designed to manage today's complex world with ease. So for those of you that are trapped in that world of chaos, as I explained with the customer that we picked up at the beginning of this year, and that conversation I had towards the end of last year, we would love to have that conversation with you to understand what your world looks like today, and maybe just shed some light on what is possible within Kodiak. So what is the key difference? Okay, and I'll try and we've only got obviously a couple of minutes of presentation, and we'll get into the actual demonstration itself, but I'll just try and give you an insight to what the key difference is between working in spreadsheets and transforming that into an SRM solution like Kodiak Hub. Well, the first part is that the role of an SRM starts with creating a single source of truth. We will get all your supply data. And when I say all data, I mean all data, and I'll expand on that in a moment, in one view. But more importantly than that, we want to turn that data into intelligence. Too many people are reliant or capturing what we call dead data. It's put somewhere and then never used again. We make sure that even the most important data and that which is deemed as unimportant is utilized in a smart way to drive real-time, actionable insights. So the question is, what is smart SRM? Well, to help describe it, I want to introduce you to the SRM pyramid. But before I do that, I want to make it really clear. I believe SRM is critical to every single business, big or small. Yet its full potential is rarely reached. And over this next couple of slides, for those of you who are familiar with SRM, my goal is to connect you to its full potential. And for those of you that are new to SRM, well, I want to open your eyes to a whole new world, because I can tell you this is incredibly exciting. So the SRM pyramid, what this articulates is, you'll see there are 3 distinct stages of SRM: operational, tactical, and strategic. For a lot of our customers, when they join us, they're in this operational space. So again, what the SRM will help you do is make sure you've got all your supplier information in one place. We help you with data accuracy. We help you in terms of filtering, segmenting, sorting your data, so it's really clean. We also, we're going to cover this off today, help you with the process of discovery and onboarding of new suppliers, something that we know takes people endless amounts of time within their current processes. We can streamline that. And once we've done those 2 things, which are the foundation, we can then move towards what we call tactical SRM. We turn that data into intelligence, so we know more about your suppliers. And there's a great statement that our founder has, and that she shares. This is Marlin Schmidt, and if you don't know Marlin, please go onto LinkedIn and Google Marlin. She's an inspiration in this space. In fact, she's doing a keynote talk this afternoon at the SASIS event in Sweden. But she has this great statement where she talks about, today in procurement, we're drowning in information, but yet we remain starved for knowledge. And just think about that for a moment. Think about your current procurement landscape. Think about what your supplier data looks like. Think about all the different technologies and whether all that information is coming from internal stakeholders, suppliers, through third-party technologies, and existing tech stacks. We're going to help you make sense of that data so you know more about your suppliers. We're also going to make sure that you have a really robust risk, compliance, and qualification process, so you do not leave yourself exposed. You know your suppliers and you know the risks and the opportunities related to those suppliers. But then you can move into the strategic area, which is, now we can start to look at the most intricate detail of how your suppliers are performing. And the interesting part here is we talk about collaboration and innovation. And a lot of people talk about suppliers becoming the supplier of choice. This is as much about that, but it's also about you becoming the customer of choice. So when that supplier is maybe having difficulty around getting parts or supply, or they've got a new innovation or new idea, you want to be the customer that they ring first and go, hey, in 6 months' time, we're going to have a problem. Do you want me to make sure that we've got enough stock to cover your orders first? Or, hey, we've got this new product coming in. We'd love to share it with you first to give you the opportunity to launch it, or whatever that might be. But it's about that level of collaboration, so there are winners on both sides of the table. And you can only do that when you've got a dedicated solution helping you to drive those conversations. And all of that collectively takes you to the top of the pyramid, which is actually driving an impact. And it's driven, and again, going right down to the bottom, about accurate supplier information management. And again, when I talk about data, I do generally mean all data. Now, I can't talk for every SRM solution that's out there, but this is a glimpse of what's possible using a solution such as Kodiak Hub. This is the kind of data architecture you can expect. You'll see on the left-hand side of your screen, we can plug in data coming from your existing tech stack, whether that's Coupa, SAP, or any of the other ERP solutions out there. If you're using data lakes, we can connect with data lakes on a push and pull basis, so we're sharing information. Of course, we're capturing data in from your suppliers, as well as that experience feedback, that critical experience feedback from your internal stakeholders. Incredibly important, particularly when you're looking at things like performance-related data. But also on the right-hand side, you've got your third-party data, anything from kind of your financial ratings to macro risks, sustainability, to sanctions, carbon data. And of course, we also operate a bring your own license. So if you're using a Dun & Bradstreet or an EcoVadis or a Bureau van Dijk or another, again, any critical data you're using to manage the risk or the performance of your suppliers, we can also plug that in. Because once that data is plugged into the SRM, that's where the magic can happen. Because that's when we can apply the rules, the typifications to make sure that, again, you're no longer driving the process, but the SRM's driving it for you. And we're able to look out for that conduct between behaviors, the trends, to help you stay ahead of the game when managing your suppliers. And imagine a world, and I'm going to show you this live in the platform in a moment, but imagine a world where you have all that data visualized in one view. Not only that, the data is allocated to a rating methodology as well. And that rating methodology is helping you to see and understand what good and bad looks like. All your documents, every action, every assessment, every audit, every evaluation, all in one place. Your third-party risk, your compliance risk, your financial risk, everything in one view. Anything that you need to drive those strategic decisions with your suppliers in one place. Inspired? I hope so. However, smart SRM isn't just about the technology. Okay, the technology is there. It's also about the mindset, and a change in mindset is needed. Traditionally, procurement has viewed SRM as a short-term process in the beginning of the source to pay process, somewhere around here. And there's a small orange box, but hopefully on your screen you can see it's the second piece in. And quite rightly so, we excel in that area. But actually, the reality is capturing data should not stop at the evaluation and onboarding phase. This is just the beginning. SRM, in conjunction with your ERP solution, will help you to stay on top of your data throughout the supplier lifecycle. And that's the mindset change that's needed. And I can tell you those that are ahead of this and those that are adopting it, they're the winners. I say we work with successful procurement leaders all over the world. Those that understand that the world has changed and that SRM could be that magic bullet to help drive through some of those challenges. But it all starts with supplier qualification, right? And how, so again, and this brings me back. So I'm about to show you, okay, how you can streamline your supplier qualification process to make it effortless. And I mean effortless. But before I do that, again, I'm going to bring David back. David, we've got another poll to ask, haven't we?
Yes, this will be our last poll. So we're wondering, how long does it take you to qualify, onboard, and approve a supplier? We have less than a week, 1 to 2 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, or over a month.
And please be honest. Okay, this is not a test. There's no right or wrong answer here. And we also appreciate that some businesses are more complex than others. And we also appreciate there are different demands. But it shouldn't take a huge amount of time. But yes, we'll be intrigued to see what how your responses are.
And also, as these results come in, I see in the chat that Venkat, you can't see the slides. I'm not sure what's going on with that. I can see the slides. If anyone else is having trouble seeing them, it'd be great to let us know in the chat, or if you're able to see them. But
and if that is the case, it would be great to have known that before slide 27 as well.
Okay, others are replying, say they can see it. So I'm not sure.
Whew.
Yeah, I can see it fine as well.
Right.
Let's check out the poll. Okay, we've had over 50% giving their answers. So our number one response was 2 to 4 weeks, was about 38%.
Okay.
Then we had 1 to 2 weeks with about 29%, and then over a month at 24%. And then for less than a week, okay, a few more people have voted. Less than a week, we're at 13%.
Okay.
But we still have 2 to 4 weeks as the leading answer with about 40%.
Great. Well, look, I think that's really fascinating. And I'm excited because those that are in 2 to 4 weeks and those that are broader than that, I'm certain that given the fact that none of you are using a smart SRM solution, as per the original question that we asked right at the beginning of this session, I know we can hopefully make that even quicker and more enjoyable for you. So what are the steps to automation? Okay, and how do we, and what are the benefits for that as well? First of all, just to understand, automation is not this big hairy red button that we just press and then bang, everything's automated. You've probably heard the statement garbage in, garbage out. So if you just drive automation in your existing systems, it is prone to fail. But there are 8 steps, strategic steps you can take to achieve automation perfection. And those steps are here. I'm going to cover that. I'm just going to read through these. We're not going to go through them in any great detail, but as soon as we've read through these, I'm going to show you an example of what this will look like within the Kodiak Hub solution. But obviously step 1 is about uploading data, but it's not just any data. You want to make sure it's really clean, and we can help you with that. We're going to tag and typify data correctly, so it doesn't just get left as dead data. So every data that is entered in the solution is meaningful and it's driving something. Define the parameters and your acceptance criteria alongside our rating methodology. And this is the beauty of something like Kodiak, because actually the days of having to evaluate your suppliers, that can be almost entirely automated now. Let the platform tell you what falls outside of your acceptance criteria. It can pick out the red flags for you. It can pick out the opportunities and the risks. And this is really important. Step 4, either greet your suppliers at the front door or go knock on theirs. Don't rely just on information you can get from public information. Let's go and find out from your suppliers what it is they're up to, how they run their business, and make sure that they meet our acceptance criteria, but also start to build that relationship where you can start to evolve and improve things together. But the trick to that is making it super easy, because going back to one of the original slides, this is not sexy stuff, right? Nobody enjoys doing it, least of all your suppliers. I think one of the reasons why Kodiak cuts through is because we make that process super clean and super easy. Step 5, give a good supplier experience. It goes back to what I was just saying there. Please do not send your suppliers a 35-page PDF document and go, hey, fill this in. And then once you've done that, here's a Excel spreadsheet with 14 tabs on it and up to 150 questions per tab. That is not a good supplier experience. They say, perception is a huge thing, and their perception on you is not going to be great. So let's find a way of capturing that information in a more efficient, again, more valued way. Source multitudes of data sources. Again, think about what you want to achieve. Don't have data for data's sake, but what's really important to you, and where can we go to source to get that information? So whether that's financial, risk, ESG, compliance, where do we need to go to find that information, and use various sources? Because plugging that into one system can help you then to make sense of that data. Segment your supplier base on their responses and data. If you're not going to segment your suppliers based on what they're giving you, then why ask the question in the first place? So again, go with the mindset of how is this going to impact how we're going to view that supplier, and then build rules so we are automatically segmenting those suppliers. And that could be anything from what a critical and strategic supplier looks like, to a risk rating, to whatever you want. And again, we can work with you to maximize that process. And finally, orchestrate internal processes. Most companies will have a procurement process, but in most cases, and in my experience of speaking with multiple procurement teams, very rarely are those procurement processes followed to the letter across all departments. You've normally got a rogue department or a rogue team or more than one doing something in their own way. Again, having something like an SRM, it's not just about making sense of the data, it's also about process orchestration, making sure there's a greater level of governance. Everybody's collectively driving the same process and looking for the same outcomes. And there you have it. There are 8 very simple steps. They might not sound it, but they are. But very possible when you have a technology driving it. So before I go into the demonstration, because straight after that, we'll do a Q&A session. I just think it's probably worthwhile, David, sharing that link again for anybody that wants to have a one-on-one conversation, either with me or with one of our team here. Please know we're welcome to that, and we'd love to hear where your challenges are today and what you're doing today, and just see whether there's an opportunity for SRM to help make things better. We can also support you things like business cases and the likes when you're trying to push something like this through within an organization. With that said, let's dive into the presentation itself. David, just while I look to swap over my screens, anything to add while I go ahead and do that?
No, not really. Thanks to everyone participating in the poll. And like I said, if you'd like a one-on-one meeting, you can book a demo on the bottom left. If you have more questions, if you'd like to talk through with one of our SRM experts like Steve, we'd be happy to have a meeting with you. We'll also bring this up again at the very end if you'd prefer to see this demo first and then decide if you'd like to learn more. And feel free to drop any questions in the chat while Steve shows off the platform, and we'll get to those when he's done with his demo.
Perfect. And David, can I just check everybody can see a map of the world? Can you see that?
Yes, we can see your screen, yes.
Okay, so obviously the purpose of this is just to give you a high level understanding of what's possible. So I'm going to keep this very high level and very quick. So I apologize to anybody that misses any of this. But again, if you have any questions, put them in the chat and David and I will cover those afterwards. So first of all, welcome to the solution. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but imagine a world, right, where at the click of a button, you've got a global view of your supply chain. Well, that's the first thing that Kodiak Hub's going to give you. These black dots here, they represent your suppliers. As you can see here, you can then zoom in. Then imagine a world that we talk about making sense of your data. Every single data point that can have a weighting to it is contributing towards an overall global rating of your suppliers. Well, as you can see here, under every supplier, there is a global rating. And then imagine a world, and we'll just dive into Amplexa here, which is a made-up supplier, where all that supplier information is captured in one area. I know I covered this off in the presentation, but it always comes alive when you see it in front of you in the real life system. So you've got that overall global rating in the top right-hand corner. That is calculated based on what we call these three pillars of health. You've got the country-related risk. So it's the environment in which your suppliers are exposed to. We have a data team here that are working with over 40 different indices to drive that calculation. By the way, if you ever want to see what sits behind any of these, click the donut. These are the areas that we're rating for you. If you want to see where the data comes from, click it again, and it will show you. The platform is super easy to use. But these two here are typically most valuable when it comes to our customers. First of all, we want to make sure that every single one of your suppliers meets your acceptance criteria in terms of their business practices. And by the way, that can be different depending on the classification of that supplier or the product or service that they're giving you. But to give you an example, what generates this overall score, there are 14 rateable areas here that we're looking at. Everything from compliance and governance to business management to quality management, supply chain. And I'm sharing this with you because it's very relevant when you're evaluating and onboarding a new supplier. And you'll see in a moment how we're going to be able to manage all of this and capture this data very, very quickly. But typically, this comes directly from the supplier, but also maybe validated by an on-site audit. Depends on what your processes are. And then finally, right in the center, you've got the performance dial. This is what we call the trifactor of data. This will be data captured directly from your supplier. It might be data captured directly from your ERP solution. And of course, that internal feedback coming directly from your team, all combined together to paint a picture in terms of the performance of that supplier, again, broken down to different rateable areas. And again, you can see the different data points which are driving those overall scores. Super simple. And again, that all drives that overall global rating. But also imagine a world that every assessment, every audit, every evaluation you've ever carried out is automatically tracked and traced and saved within your supplier scorecard. So again, we're talking about onboarding. let's have a look at the onboarding questionnaire that was sent out to this supplier. You can search it very easily. You can open it up like this, and you'll see down here, here are those 14 rateable areas, all having a score, and you can click into each of those areas and you can see the responses. This is where I talk about allowing the platform to evaluate the suppliers for you. Because again, you can build in a score that will trigger a yes or a no. But also you'll see here, you have certain responses that might have a red box like this one here. So if they said no to code of conduct, that would have triggered a red box, a red flag. There'll be a red box around this segment here. And you now know the reason why that supplier has not gone through to approval is because there's something that falls outside your criteria. And again, imagine a world that assessment has automatically gone out to your suppliers, because again, the way that you've got auto segmentation, it will pick and choose the right evaluation that goes out to the right suppliers based on industry, sector, whatever it is that you want. Imagine that comes back and there is a problem, and that drives a smart action, maybe a corrective action plan. Again, and you can pick any one of these, and it will drive, and what it will automatically do is not only will it create the action, this is a shared space amongst all the people that are going to be involved in that action that are automatically tagged into that. I'm just going to move this out of the way. It will also have maybe sub-actions down the left-hand side. Anybody involved in that action can see what stage they're in. This is out for approval. It looks like there's one more piece that needs to be finished. There's also a chat box down here where you can have conversations back and forth. How many of you get lost in chats on email? Well, again, all tracked and traced and saved within the scorecard. You got a full action history here as well, showing you what's happened and when within the dialogue. Normally opens much quicker than this, but for the purpose of today's demo, we'll just move out of that. And then again, if you go back into the scorecard, you can of course create your own actions. Again, just to show you, there will also be an onboarding one for this particular supplier, which again, you can open up. You can see the sub actions were all completed. And this was a completed action as well. Super powerful. Imagine a world, right, where every piece of documentation that you have relevant to that supplier is captured, stored, and saved automatically in your supplier scorecard. That's what an SRM should do for you. Not only that, you'll see things like expiry dates tracked. So here we've got the ISO 45001, which is your health and safety certificate. And I know this is due to expire on such a date. When this is coming close to expiry, guess what happens? The platform will automatically acknowledge that to the supplier, requesting the new document. Document will come in, it will supersede this one, it will get archived. But more importantly than that, everything's linked. Let's say, for example, this health and safety certificate expires. Then what will happen under here, under health and safety, you'll see ISO 45001. That will automatically turn from a yes to a no. That will impact the score and maybe trigger something. And you'll also be able to see that in the historical chart as things are changing. Everything is linked together. Final thing on this scorecard, on the right-hand side, I'll note that all your properties are here. Everything from basic supplier information, contact details, maybe to, I don't know, spend-related data that's being captured from your ERP, or how you're categorizing your suppliers can be viewed and selected within here, all tracked, saved, editable, easily within the scorecard. And of course, you've also got third-party risk here, everything from financial intelligence to media insights to sanctions, politically exposed persons, and the likes here also on the right-hand side. So everything you need to know, everything you need to understand, all in one view. Now, final thing I want to show you, and trust me, there is so much more, but I've talked about how can we automate the onboarding process. Well, first of all, it starts with how do we set up a new supplier? Well, there's a couple of ways you can do that in our platform. You could either have a landing page like this on your website, which obviously be branded to you, not to Kodiak, but you can have some questions, drop downs, whatever you want, and the supplier just pre-populates that. And when they do that, it will automatically then drive into Kodiak Hub and therefore provide that information. You can obviously import your suppliers. So again, just drop a file in and import your suppliers, Or like what we're going to do today, you might just want to add a new supplier. And for the purpose of today, I'm just going to do this very quickly. You only need 4 bits of data. There's a user ID, which the system can automatically generate for you, or it can follow an algorithm within your ERP, or you can type it in manually, whatever you want. Supplier name, I'll just put webinar test for the purpose of this. An email address, I'll use mine for now. And a country. Like I say, you can add as much information as you want, but that's the basic information that I'm adding. Like I say, you can add any field you want in here, press save. And then what you're going to see, importantly, is that automatically that'll be here under pending application. So again, if we do this webinar, here we are, webinar test. You'll also see, by the way, it's already starting to generate a score. We dive in here. Now, depending on what rules you have, because of what this is generated, this will automatically start an onboarding workflow and invite all of those and your colleagues into that process. But also typically at this point, this is where you'd want to go out to the supplier, maybe ask them some questions. So all I need to do that is go here and invite them. So I can go, I've just created this qualification. Here is the webinar test. I can go here. I can press, I'm just going to move this out of the way, add recipient. And again, I just search for webinar test. Here we are, and I can add. By the way, you can add as many suppliers as you want to this all in one go. You'll see here, by the way, there's various reminders because when this assessment goes out to your supplier, the platform will automatically chase that supplier for you to make sure they complete it. Statistic for you, 86% of all our assessments were completed in full within 2 weeks without any human interaction. It's a statistic we're really proud of, and that's because we make the platform super easy and clean to use. The other thing that's quite nice here is that's now gone out to the supplier. And I'll remind you, I set myself up as the supplier, so I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. But also I can now monitor that entire process. I can see the suppliers that I've sent it out to. I can see, again, based on the key across the top, whether it's been unavailable, whether it's bounced, whether it's delivered, it's been opened, they've assessed the assessment link's been clicked, whether they've started to respond or whether they've completed it. Now I know, let's have a look here. Here we are. So here it is. So imagine now I'm the supplier. I have had an email. What's really unique, and we need to remember, is that I'm not going to have to log into anything at all. We use powered links. So that means from a supplier's perspective, they don't need to create usernames, passwords, any of that paraphernalia. They get the email. There'll be some instruction on here what to do, begin the assessment. Because I've not been on here before, it will tell me how to complete the assessment. And I start to put in some information in here. And again, I'll just put a number here that I know will pull some data. 562. I'm going to cover this off really quick now. But again, you pick the services you're doing. And these questionnaires, you can obviously create and manage your own to really whatever you want. Again, this is just a very short example for you that I'm showing. So I'm going to put a code of conduct in there. So again, I want to show you how it collects documentation. You can see it's after every click, it's saving. So I can come out of this and come back into it. I'm just going to say no to a lot of questions. So just to speed it up for you. But again, I'm not going to do well. I am not a supplier you're going to want to take. But one of the nice things about this, depending on your response, there'll be rules, which means you're only asking the questions that are relevant. You'll see here, there's no additional questions. But if I click no, more questions appear. So I will actually add the 14,001 because it'll be quicker for me to do that. And it will be to answer the rest of the questions. And here it is. Add that in. Now it's asking for an expiry date. So again, I can add that expiry date in here. Super clean, super easy. So your suppliers will hopefully get the response to you much, much quicker. And again, I'll just quickly go through these. Oh, no, yes, whatever. Okay, great. And then next step and press submit. Now, because I've just completed that as the customer, I will need to log back into the platform. So I'll do that using single sign-on, and you put your email address in. Okay, and what I'm hopefully going to be able to show you now is that because that information has been completed by the supplier, okay, I'm just going to go into the right environment, okay, which is the demo environment. You will see that everything has been updated within the scorecard. So again, so bear in mind, all I've had to do, and you'll see it's got a red flag, okay? This is not great. All I've had to do is enter 4 data points, and it's driven the entire process. Just refresh my screen so I'll get all the data in. Okay, well, that would normally load up, but you'll see here, we've now got this information on the right-hand side. So that questionnaire I've just completed covered these areas here. I did very well on compliance, but not so well on health and safety. You'll also note that that assessment that I've completed automatically saved again within that scorecard. I can click into that assessment and I can see the areas where I've not qualified, because then obviously I was completing that quickly. If I scroll down a little bit further, you'll see that an action has been created because there was a red flag triggered. So I can see here and I can see who's been involved in that action, who's been invited to complete that action. I can scroll down further. I can see the documents that were uploaded automatically saved wherever there was an expiry date already tracked here come in. I can also see on the right-hand side, if I put properties, some more information. I put in John Smith. I put in a VAT registration number. As a result of the VAT registration number, I've got the financial insights, which is driving my credit score up here. So hopefully what I've just demonstrated in just 10 minutes is how easy the process of onboarding and evaluating your suppliers can be by simply using a smart SRM, which turns your data into real-time actionable insights. Now, I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to move into the Q&A session. So back to you, David. I don't suppose we've had any questions as a result of today's presentation.
We have a couple. And again, I'm just going to launch this book a demo button. If you'd like, if you have a lot of questions or you'd like to explore the platform more one-on-one, you can book a demo right now. You can always do so on our website as well. We have a question here. I think you can see it on screen now from Birgit. Is it possible to start assessments automatically, both internal and external?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the short answer is yes, absolutely. The long answer is as long as there's a trigger. So that could be what type of supplier are they? Will trigger a certain assessment that goes out. It could be, it doesn't have to be just on onboarding. It could be also be part of your reviews or ongoing evaluations. It could be time triggered. It could be event triggered. But the answer is absolutely yes. And you can have various versions of different templates so it can pick the correct one for you for the correct suppliers.
Great. And we had one more question here from Devon, which is, how are relationships between vendors and factories managed? For example, if we had one vendor operating 3 factories across multiple countries.
Yeah. So again, that's a conversation that I'd recommend you have with our customer success team. Ultimately, we can help you with your supplier mapping. And the reason why I say that is because there's a number of ways you can do it, but ultimately we can make it look and feel however you want it to. So you could have an umbrella company with all the sub-companies sat underneath it, or you can have them all as independents. That's up to you. And there are other examples as well. I wouldn't like to just talk about one. It's more about, well, what are you looking to achieve and how would you like to see the data illustrated? The capability of how to filter, sort, segment your supplier data within Kodiak is incredibly strong. I'd say the only limitation is your imagination, really.
Great. We had one more question just come in now. Martin was wondering if we have a customer story that went from operational chaos to an up and running procurement department using Kodiak, and if we could share the essence of that story.
David, you might be better because I know you look after the case studies and things on our websites. I know we have a number of different versions of that, but is the one that stands out to you?
Yeah, so as Steve mentioned, we have some great case studies on our website. I would say the one that comes to mind immediately was Amtico Flooring. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying they had chaos, but they had never done any category management and strategic sourcing. And then with Kodiak, they actually were able to begin categorizing their suppliers for the first time, and then which helped all of their category managers be more strategic and just helped them to really roll out that strategic sourcing. So again, I don't want to call any of our customers that they came from chaos necessarily, but I would say that was a great transformation. And then relevant to this, again, I don't want to say chaos, but HL Display, one of our great customers, they manage, they provide display solutions for retail and stores, shelving and displays. And they had accelerated their onboarding as well as their assessments. They cut their assessments down from taking about 8 to 10 months to assess all their suppliers, and they had gotten it down to less than a month. So those would be the top two that come to mind. All of our case studies, you can check them out on our website. A lot of them cover, mitigating risk, improving compliance, getting more strategic, and driving stronger relationships and smarter decisions.
I think part of it as well, just to expand on that, if you think about where your time is being spent today and think about why it is that you're in your role, then ask yourself, how much time am I spending doing the stuff that I enjoy, where I can be a real value and asset to the business? And how much of my time am I spending just moving information around or chasing information? I think you'll be surprised, unfortunately, on what the answer will be. And the beauty of Kodiak or an SRM solution, not just Kodiak, there are others out there, and we've all got our own USPs, but it frees you up to be able to do the stuff that you love doing, and where you can deliver more value back to the business. But also remember, it's, in a world where we have to be more transparent, and particularly when auditors are coming into your business to look at your processes, without an SRM, you're going to be tangled up in a web of searching through emails and documents and backdating stuff, where that could all just be a touch of a button, and it makes it much, much easier.
Great. Yeah, we had one last question come in. I believe this can be pretty fast.
Okay.
Which is it possible to integrate Kodiak with AI? That's a bit broad.
Very broad, and look, AI's obviously very, very important, and we absolutely have AI. The goal here is to have AI at the core of Kodiak. We're already adopted some AI, and there is more coming. The first question that I always ask is, what are you looking to achieve as a result of adopting AI in a solution? Because one thing I'm super passionate about, and we talked about this at a local event that we did a presentation on, and we talk about garbage in, garbage out. AI is very, very intelligent, and it will make decisions based on the information that it's provided. So if your data is inaccurate, i.e. you're going to load your spreadsheets into an AI machine, then just be ready for something to be completely irrelevant to come out the other end of it, because it will work from the information that you feed it. So for us, it's about, first of all, about accuracy, and then it's about adopting those AI solutions, which will start to drive, things like, assessments, and there's various forms of AI that we're adopting. Anything to expand on that, David?
Oh, sorry. Just to jump on what you said, that we integrate with tons of platforms. I'm going to give the handout now if you'd like to download this deck. But in this deck, you'll see the overview of all the types of platforms that we integrate with. So yes, to this kind of broad question about integrating with AI, if you have an existing solution with AI in it, we integrate seamlessly.
Yeah.
yeah, you can download that handout to get a more detailed look of our integrations.
I guess what I'm saying is just be careful. Okay, so AI is a buzzword, and look, we're celebrating it. We use it a lot, but there's a right way and a wrong way. We've done entire sessions on what great looks like in terms of AI adoption, and we'd love to help you on that journey. But just be careful, because the way AI works is driven by the data that is fed. So sort that first.
Yes, and we had one last question, and we are out of time. I don't think we're
Yeah.
going to have time to dive into this fully, but it's another
Right.
one from Martin. It's about regarding due diligence. We have suppliers who won't fill this out, for example, Microsoft, Google. So how do we tackle those dragons to get their data? Can we use AI to scan their websites, their trust center? Yeah, I think this is a bigger question we have time for.
Yeah.
But as I just mentioned, within the handout, if you download the PDF, we show a full overview of all of our data sources.
Yeah.
So yes, we do scan the big data that's out there to give you as much data as publicly available from these type of companies. But yeah, I don't know if Steve, you have something quickly.
No, I think you've answered it perfectly. I think it's a real mix. So, the challenge that our companies have is you've got these data lakes or data houses, where you can get a lot of information about your Googles and your Microsofts, which are the examples you gave. And great, let's plug those in. Let's get that information, okay? Just to remind you, though, it's still your responsibility to check the accuracy of that data directly with the supplier. But we can make that really easy. The bigger challenge is with the smaller companies that just aren't on those data houses, which is typically 75-80% of people's supply chains. That's where you have to go out to them to get the information, because it's not publicly available. But yes, Martin, great question. And of course, we're going to help you to scrape as much as we can without impacting the supplier. But we're also going to help you to get clarity from the supplier when we need it.
Yes. Great. Well, we are out of time, but as I've mentioned, you have a book a demo button here in the bottom left corner. If you have any more questions, would like to dive deeper into this, or just learn about the other benefits of Kodiak Hub, you can book a demo now, or you can always go to our website to book one. We'd be happy for one of our many SRM experts like Steve to have a one-on-one chat with you and answer all your questions. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye now.